Welcome back, heroes! We're jumping into part 2 of this workshop. What up? You guys wanted to see Gizmo again. There he is! Gizmo is always giving me a lovely stare, as is a picture of my late father. Those are the guys I want to see looking at me while I'm rocking and rolling, while I'm doing a live stream, and maybe just killing some world first raid bosses. We'll see, Mr. Pandaria. This round's going to the preacher, I'm pretty sure. So we're back today, this is part 2. In part 1 we looked at blood decay and threat issues with AoE tanking. I boiled it down to it literally being the pull. We had a question about Heart Strike. Heart Strike obviously does 2 targets, a nice big natural cleave, and does a generally great amount of threat. The thing is, threat isn't actually the issue. It's just the pull, getting it organised, getting the mobs in a nice big circular ball of death. That all comes from the pull. Threat is actually so outrageous at the moment in Cataclysm that trying to use abilities that give us more threat later on isn't really an issue. Those are more DPS increases than anything. It's not going to give us threat problems. We can actually just spread around. Death striking on 4 mobs will be equally as good. It's no big deal whatsoever. Heart Strike, of course, will give you more DPS and, of course, more threat. But we're not actually struggling for threat overall. We're just struggling with our pull to make sure we get a Death Ball. And after that, we've got our AoE abilities and all that kind of stuff. We're fine and dandy. No big deal whatsoever. So, we're going to jump into part 2 now, which is the Shadow Priest. Now, I was submitted a game by Jesse, the Shadow Priest. Jesse was struggling with DPS in Heroics. And I actually don't mind you submitting to me videos of you playing in 5-man Heroics. In fact, compared to raid bosses, they're generally more useful to see different kinds of play. We get to see some bosses, we get to see how you deal with AoE packs, we get to see how you deal with transitioning between pulls. You will actually learn a lot more from 5-man Heroics, as awkward as it sounds, than raid fights. Raid fights will teach you how to deal with boss mechanics. That's cool. 5-man Heroics will actually deal with how to do multiple different styles of DPS in all sorts of different situations, which is totally baller. So I don't mind you submitting to me videos of you playing in a 5-man at all. They really help me, especially if you're a tank or a healer, because you're dealing with all sorts of stuff. One fight might have dispellable debuffs. One fight might have various different sorts of raid damage we need to support cooldowns. All sorts of crazy stuff like that. So we've got a Shadow Priest video. So what is the problem with Shadow Priest that we're going to look at today? Shadow Priests have this really awkward problem. They do so much dot damage, very similar to Affliction Warlocks. And when we get into our 5-man dungeons where the mobs don't last a very long time, our dots actually become less and less useful. If our dots become less useful and they don't tick for their entire length of time, guess what happens? We have shit DPS. People are like, your DPS is suck, bro. Yeah, and you might even end up getting kicked out of the dungeon. In fact, Jesse, who submitted to me this video, was kicked several times. He was kicked quite a lot of times for the actual skill level that he was playing with. Now, we're not going to say the skill level is actually that high. We're going to see lots and lots of errors in this video. But hopefully we can clean this up. And if Jesse does watch this video, I'll be more than happy for you to actually put what we put into play. Send me another video, and at the next workshop we will in fact check it out. We have done that in the past. We saw Polly PJ, who's in the chat right now. Big kisses go out to Polly PJ. He submitted to me a video of his rogue and then pulled an extra ton of DPS next time after the workshop. The workshop does work. Yeah, that's all we care about. A quick announcement again, and in fact Untrill is going to be so mad at me, is we're looking for rogues to be on EU Sylvanas next week, a week today. Please be on EU Sylvanas before the web show, around about 7 PM GMT, around about 2 hours before this web show, just so we can actually do that. And of course, I played the wrong video when I showed you the test of the video we were going to be making. This is actually the final version. Steph was in fact pretty pissed that I didn't play the right one. Oh, it's so nice. It's going to be pretty baller. So we do want you guys to be a part of that video. The more the merrier. The more rogues we can get, the more awesome the finale scene to that video will be. It's going to be pretty cool. In fact, the initial shots of that took about 7 hours on a Sunday. We were very busy that day. We were very busy that day getting shots from all sorts of servers. There's nothing quite like having people stood on Kodos, riding left and right, so we can actually get good angles. It's all a bit Machinima style, but it's going to be very, very cool. This video submitted to me was called My Shadow Priest Sucking DPS. Sucking with DPS. Yes, it's going to be a rather epic video. We would love you guys to be a part of it. Hopefully you want to be a part of it. That's the most important thing. So, Jesse, we're going to call it Dagoth. Ooh, Dagoth. So what's a Dagoth? Dagoth's like a smiley goth? Maybe you have red lipstick instead of black? I don't know. Maybe use blusher instead of white? I don't know. let's jump into this video. Okay, so Dagoth is going to go and show us her talents. Her talents are fine and stuff like that. But let's look. We've got a 322 item level of a maximum of 342, obviously to enter the dungeons in the first place. That's cool. As we can see as we go through, there's some greens on there. General gods for spirit. It's all a bit gash. Terrible, terrible gear. But we're okay with that. The gear isn't actually irrelevant. What I can't see is the spell hits, but we're going to assume with all these spirit reforges and that kind of stuff that she's gone very, very heavily towards spirit and hit. So we should be seeing a hit cap Shadow Priest there. You can see some items that she picks up in LFR are not, or from the badge vendors, are not in fact gemmed at all. Oh, here we go. Spell hit. Where's your hit chance? 15.9. Slightly below the spell hit chance. That's okay. Being slightly below is fine. Remember that as you first get into your heroic dungeons, you're unlikely as a spellcaster to be hit capped. As you can see, Dagoth has actually put as much effort as possible with a reforge in to get to the hit cap and still can't quite make it. That's okay. If you can't do it, you can't do it. On the Mr. Pandaria beta yesterday, you guys saw me raiding on a Arms Warrior. I reforged absolutely every spec of gear to the hit and expertise cap and still could not make the caps. I made the hit cap, but I couldn't make the expertise cap. That's what it's like in early raiding, guys. That is exactly what it's like. It's no big deal whatsoever. So, Dagoth was having some serious issues in her dungeons, and she gave us a nice Tolvir dungeon. As you can see, the UI isn't actually that bad. Shadow Priests have a tendency to have this really spammy UI. Every Shadow Priest video I've ever seen in the history of mankind has had a really spammy UI, but this is actually fine. We've got a nice dot timer up here. We've got our Mind Flay tracking its actual ticks, which is awesome. Which is all very cool. And we've also got this can obviously be dragged over to the side. That's not a major issue, but it's because the resolution's been turned up and Dagoth hasn't actually just dragged these unit frames over to the side. But other than that, the UI isn't actually too bad whatsoever. I actually think it's pretty cool. Good job. No problem at all. So, we've just finished our pack. Now, this is the point where we start to see why our DPS is low. As you can see on the DPS meter, 5.4k DPS on an AoE pack. Oh my god, doesn't that feel horrible? When you look at yourself, not only are you bottom of the damage meter, but by miles. Oh, it's the worst. It's the absolute worst ever. I hate it. And you hate it too, I know you do. You look at the damage meter and you just want to cry your eyes out. I did 5.4k DPS. Everybody is destroying me. Absolutely everybody is destroying me. And we've got a rogue doing 24k DPS, probably trolling with Blade Flurry and Adrenaline Rush and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's icky, it's awful, we hate it. How can we improve? First things first, how quickly are we attacking? Because we should be assuming, as a DPS, that our tank is about to pull immediately. Obviously, our pug tanks generally don't. Off he goes, he's having to think about it. This is what bothers me. I know this is off topic, but what is this? Watch this tank. In the guild chocolate, what's he called? Tank spot? What is this moment here where he spins around and looks around? Wait, looks there, spins around in a circle, and then starts going. What the fuck is going on there? I see this all the time in 5-man heroics. What is that? What are you looking at? It's like you walk into a room that you've seen, and you're like, yeah, I've seen this room, I've done everything in it, and then you go, okay, let's continue. What the fuck is going on there? I see it all the time. I don't know what's going on. They stand up and they turn around. Okay, we can go now. I don't get it. It just bothers me. It's a pet peeve. I'm just sat behind like a PC thinking, what the fuck are you doing? And why are you doing it? Okay, so here we go. As a Shadow Priest, if you don't know, I don't want to go into the spell details, really, of what we're doing with a Shadow Priest. All we know and all we need to know about for this workshop, because obviously the spell priorities and stuff I've done in the guide, is that our dots are super important. Our dots are super, super important, and Shadow Priests do have an issue with buffing up a Shadow Word Pain. They need to get various buffs from Shadow Orbs and all that kind of shit. And what seems to be the problem with Dagoth right now is that Dagoth is aware of a million Shadow Priest mechanics all at once, but he's new to the class. So you're trying to do step 6 before you've learnt step 1. And that is a real big issue when it comes to DPS, especially when you don't think of the common sense approach. What you have people like Dagoth doing is going, well, I need to get my Shadow Orbs on, and then I need to get this on, and then I need to do this and that. Instead of thinking, I'm a dot class, but this mob won't last long enough for my dots to tick. And you're thinking about all sorts of other stuff instead of just a basic common sense approach. I often get questions like, well, Preach, how does an affliction lock DPS, like AoE? Do we need to dot everything? It's a common sense approach. Will your dots last long enough to do all their damage? If they won't, then we don't multi-dot. We go for burst damage. Should you instantly start haunting a mob that will die within one Shadow Bolt? No, you shouldn't. You should just Shadow Bolt it. It will do more damage. Simple common sense approach. Instead of thinking, right, Preach told me this, and this. Wait a minute. Can I actually do this, and this? Probably not. So then we don't do that. It's very simple, guys. So instead of thinking about going for super, you're not going to do world-class DPS. We haven't even got the hit cap. We're in greens. We're in the basic heroics of the game. Nothing to worry about. So what we've got here, we're going to see some clicking in this, is we pull with a Shadow Word Death. Now, this is going to happen consistently, and I don't want you to think I missed it, but for the sake of this video and this workshop, we're going to pretend that we've addressed it now, which is you should not be starting with a Shadow Word Death. There is no need to do so, okay? Shadow Word Death is not going to get you good damage. All that using that global cooldown has done is, in fact, made you miss a dot tick of a more important spell. That kind of stuff. So using those instant cast spells like Shadow Word Death should be safe for mana issues, should be safer below 20%, and should be safer if you're moving. If you're moving and you need to cast something instant, go ahead and cast your Shadow Word Death. Shadow Word Death is going to be cast by Dagoth quite a lot in this video. I just want to get that out there. That is going to be happening all the damn time. So off we go. Now the dots are on. Finally, but look where the dots have landed. The dots haven't got onto the target until we are at 75%. 73% exactly. We did not get our dots on that target till 73%, and then we started to do some damage. That's just the problem that's going to lead to the lowest DPS ever, is we're actually just really, really late with getting our damage on. All the time. With our Shadow Priest, we want to be casting Vampiric Touch before we even reach the target. Now, there's a problem. We've seen it in the past as well. We've decided, and this is probably my fault, I'm going to take this as read, this is probably my fault that I've done this, is I've said Vampiric Touch is super mega important. Will that Vampiric Touch tick? No, it won't. If you Vampiric Touch a mob that's at 10% health and is about to die, that is just a complete waste of a cast. Common sense approach. Instead of thinking, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. All we need to do is think common sense. What's left of this mob? Well, now I should Shadow Word Death. Maybe I should just let my Mind Flay tick off. I don't need to spend a cast bar recasting dots by simply just not paying attention to that sort of a mechanic. So Vampiric Touch went up. We didn't even finish our Mind Blast proc because of that. Now, as a caster DPS, especially dot heavy, you should always be with the tank. All these DPS issues that we're going to see Dagoth suffer from, in general, are going to be from a very, very slow reaction time. Little tip here, if you're going to be doing AoE on about 6 mobs, what you can actually do is go ahead and just Vampiric Touch all these up. You'll get a nice solid DPS increase, then start Mind Searing away, no problem at all. In fact, Dagoth is very comfortable when it comes to just Mind Searing away, but in common situations with Shadow Priests, we're going to see here, okay, we've only got 3 mobs left, and from the guide video that we saw, we should start multi-dotting. But the problem is these mobs are already nearly dead. That's why the rest of them start dying. So we've gone back to our basic knowledge, which was my dots are important. 3 mobs, I should be multi-dotting. But now we need to, the situation is the dots aren't going to last. Maybe 2 of these mobs will last long enough, but not in general. I'm trying to instill in you this common sense approach of weighing up the situation for its merits. We've used a Shadow Fiend there. Now again, remember, blowing cooldowns just before a boss is a huge no-no. A Shadow Fiend is a DPS cooldown. Do not use a DPS cooldown just before a boss, especially the pack before it. It could have been a misclick for all I know. All I'm saying to you is using a Shadow Priest DPS, a big DPS cooldown of any description, Shadow Priest or not, just before a boss pull is bad news for everybody. And now we've got Dagoth in a bit of a panicky situation. What the hell do I do? These mobs are alive. I tried to Shadow Word Pain that mob, and it was instantly dead. As you see there's a Shadow Word Pain, pops on for less than 1 second. You Shadow Word Pain a mob that was at 2.9% HP. Ugh! We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. So, we're going to jump to this boss, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth. We're going to watch the boss fight fully. We're going to enjoy. And then we're going to pull out exactly how we can improve Dagoth's single target DPS. Instant pulls with a Shadow Word Death. Shadow Word Pain goes on. Then we have a delay and a Mind Flay. Trying to get up some Archangel. Then the Vampiric Touch. Exploded. Stood on a Mind. No big deal. And now we're going to start some DPS. Now look at all this unnecessary movement. crazy amounts of unnecessary movement. So many missed casts. Shadow Word Death again. Refreshing Shadow Word Pain, even though our Mind Flare refreshes it, and getting exploded by a mine again. Another Mind Blast, a Mind Flare. There's our Archangel finally procking up. Still not used it. Vampiric Touch has fallen off. Backpedaling, still not casting through all this. Vampiric Touch is still not on the boss, our most important of all the dots. Mind Blasting. Now we've got no Vampiric Touch or Devouring Plague, and we're running around. And the boss has died. Okay. So obviously, tons of stuff going on there that is a huge issue, and that is why the DPS has gone a little bit awry. Okay, DPS has gone all kinds of wonky in that fight. So how are we? What is the problem? First of all, movement. As a caster, again, we're thinking position. We always need to be thinking about this position no matter what we're playing. If we're about to get hit by mines, do I need to move from that mine? If I can stay next to that mine and I am so close to not being hit by it, I ain't going anywhere, baby. I'm making the maximum amount of time to make sure I can get every global cooldown in. All I care about as a Shadow Priest when I'm doing the basic damage, I'm not after world first DPS, I'm not after maximizing the uptime of everything, is all I want you to do when you're doing single target boss is make sure your Shadow Word Pain is up, and remember that your Mind Flare refreshes it. You don't need to recast it unless you're going to try and do some... I wouldn't worry about recasting Shadow Word Pain when you've got maximum buffs, when we're not keeping up Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague all the time. That is a big tip. That's all I want you to work on for your first week after this, is watch this, just watch it back. Yes, you're interested. You're thinking about step 6 all the time, which is the very issue we get when we watch videos on YouTube and stuff like that, is we worry about step 6, which is getting our top level DPS. But we forget the basics. Just keep your dots on. You'll start seeing more and more damage, and then increase your play. Baby steps all the way. Very important is that you don't forget the basics. The basics of a Shadow Priest is keep your 3 dots ticking and rocking and rolling, baby. Keep them hurting that boss every single time. I know some of the guys are going, you're clicking. That's okay. It doesn't matter. For this guide, we're not bothered if you're a clicker. Keybinding comes over time. It's okay to click in the early days of playing as long as you're working on it. Okay? Clicking was not the reason that you didn't cast this Vampiric Touch or you didn't cast the Devouring Plague when it ran out. That is not the reason that happened. The reason that happened is you were watching out for mines, you were moving for ones that weren't going to hit you, and you weren't moving for ones that were going to hit you because you blew up quite a few times. Using DPS cooldowns on trash, that kind of stuff, that's where your big issue is going to come from. All you need to work on, the basics here, is why your DPS is a little bit low. It's just making sure your dots are rolling nicely. That is the big thing that you need to be working on straight away. It's so obvious. And don't worry about your Shadow Word Death. And no need to dispersion when you're already at 100% mana. Seems to be doing quite a lot of stuff. I also take into account some people get a little bit nervous when submitting to me videos because they think I'm going to take the piss and rip them a new arsehole on the live stream. I'm not going to do that. I am not going to do that whatsoever. We're going to see another trash pack, and then we're going to summarize everything that you need to do just to increase your DPS so you're not languishing down here in the lobbies of the low DPS. These situations, look, we're already in combat. There's DPS going on. We are still mounted. This is fail! Fail to the max. We don't want to do that. No big problem at all. What we want to do is you should be first off your mount. If you need to cast something while you're traveling, get some Shadow Word Pain on there. No problem at all. Get the Vampiric Touches going. Here we go. Vampiric Touches, but you recast it on the same target. You don't want to do that. Make sure we're tracking where we're going. This is better. But then we tried to cast a Vampiric Touch on a mob with 12%. So again, we've got the basics down. Yeah, we've got multiple mobs. Let's get some Vampiric Touches going. But we're not thinking about the common sense approach of these dot damages. And this is where Shadow Priest can suffer. Then we're going to get away the mines here. Nice little bit of damage. No problem at all. We can see the Vampiric Touch is doing 20 odd K on their own. And our Mind Seer is backing that up. So that play was fine, but we just did not do the basics, which is waiting for that very easy stuff, which was just judging the health of the remaining HP mobs. If we've got a low HP mob, then we don't need to do the Vampiric Touches. We don't need to worry about dots. Just go ahead and Mind Blast it. Shadow Word Death it. Why not? It's below 20% health. Get some nice extra damage in there. So the big tips for you increasing your DPS is, one, be faster. Be with the tank, and when the tank is running in, that's when you should start casting. Remember, threat is not an issue. You should have your Vampiric Touch in the air and flying towards that target just as the mob is about to be pulled. It's fine to do that. Ooh, excuse me. It's fine to do that. There's no big deal with that whatsoever. And judge your dots. If your target is going to die before that dot gets a duration out, no problem at all. No big issue whatsoever. Don't dot it. Use a Mind Blast. Use a Shadow of Death. Use something like that. Use your instant cast spells. Try not to move as much, okay? Oh, you guys. You pick up on my mini burp. Fuck you guys. Oh, funny. And that's it, guys. So, any questions there on the Shadow Priest? I don't think so. Oh, poor Louis didn't have a laugh at all tonight. Sucks to be you, dude. Sucks to be you. Any other things on there? Again, it's about speed as always. If you're worried about your overall DPS, you just need to be faster and don't be dotting mobs that are about to die. Anything else, guys? And then we're going to call it a night on this workshop. I hope you enjoyed the workshop. And again, if you want to submit to me a video of you playing, and we'll go over it and see if we can help you out, preachgaming@gmail.com. And if you're not sure how to submit a video to me, just send that to... Or just check my YouTube channel for how to submit to the workshop. Very easy. Very easy stuff. You take it easy, ballers. You have a great night. And I'll see you next week for the Rogue video. Oh, Rogue video is going to be awesome. So cool.